Hello, shalom, and welcome to Scout Israel. Shalom and welcome to the Untitled the Rephaim riverbed. Most of the year it's dry actually. We've noticed they've started pouring a bit more water back into the riverbed. This is a riverbed, a nice little hike just south of Jerusalem. It's actually more of a nature walk. It's very good for kids. I brought my kids with me today. And today we're learning a little bit about the fig tree, because the Untitled Rephaim riverbed area is filled with these fig trees, and it's just the beginning of fig picking season. So we've been picking figs. What you doing, Zaki?
Getting some pigs in this bag was not unfolding it was.
Way! Now, if you're going to talk about a fruit tree that is biblical, I can think of nothing more biblical than the fig tree. We're going to be learning about that fig tree, but just to remember.
And don't forget to like, share and subscribe.
So why is the fig tree a biblical tree? Is actually the tree behind me here. This is the fig tree. Well, firstly, I'm sure you've all heard of Adam and Eve, right? The first people in the world mentioned in the Bible in Genesis. And you're going to tell me what was the forbidden fruit that they were not allowed to eat. I can tell you one thing that it absolutely wasn't. It absolutely wasn't an apple. There are many different suggestions by the rabbis, most notably in a book commentary on Genesis known as Genesis Rabbah. And one suggestion was that the fruit of the tree of knowledge, the forbidden fruit, was wheat. One suggestion was wheat, and another suggestion that actually was the etrog tree, the fruit that we use on the Jewish festival of Sukkot in ritual. One of the suggestions from Genesis Rabbah was that the fig tree actually is the most likelihood tree to be the tree of the fruit of knowledge. Why is that? Well, the story is told in Genesis Rabbah of a king. The king has a son, and the son kind of fools around with one of the maids. And so he's kicked out on his ear by the king. The king says, "Get out of here, I don't want filthy, disgraceful sons like you ruining my royal name." And so the son goes from door to door of all the girls he's been fooling around with, and none of them will let him in until that final maid that he got caught with opens the door and lets him in. The fig tree is the fruit of knowledge. Why? Because the leaves of the fig tree are very big, and they're thought to be the leaves that God himself sewed together to make the first clothes for the first man and woman, covering up their shame, so to speak, letting them in and creating a shelter for them from all the elements, and to a certain extent repairing the damage that they did. So they are the most likely, because they take that part in the story too. They're acting like the maidservant letting this prince in. They're most likely to be the tree of the fruit of knowledge, at least according to Genesis Rabbah. And as we can see, there's a very shady area under the trees. Figs themselves are very, very interesting fruit because, and this is one of the problems with being the fruit of the tree of knowledge, but I don't think the Bible was being scientific here. Figs are not fruit. Come again? Yeah, figs are not fruit. They're not fruit because they're actually an enclosed flower. As you might know, flowers make other flowers, trees make other trees by pollination. Birds or insects come along, rub up next to the stamens inside the flowers, get covered in pollen, move to another flower to drink the nectar, and rub off the pollen, thus creating more flowers. That's how more flowers come about, transferring the genetic code. How does that work? Which is on the pollen, right? Genetic code's on the pollen. So how does this happen with fig trees? Well, fig trees have this enclosed flower that's very juicy and sweet, and a wasp, which hopefully I'll get some footage of, lands on the fig and lays a little egg inside the fig. and the little egg turns into a little maggot, and the little maggot wiggles around and gets covered in pollen and turns into a wasp, and the wasp breaks out of the fig and then finds another fig to eat covered in pollen. They're perpetually covered in pollen, I suppose, thus pollinating the fig tree. So figs are actually enclosed flowers. Now here's the thing, if you're a religious Jew, it's forbidden for you to eat insects, maggots. So you might see religious Jews cutting open the figs to check inside. If you do this with dried figs as well, to check inside for maggots, and the reason those maggots are there is to pollinate the trees, which brings in mind another biblical story. In the book of Jeremiah, he has a vision of 2 baskets of figs. One basket of figs is a basket of ripe figs, and the other basket of figs are rotten figs, and the ripe figs are supposed to be the kingdom of Judah, and the rotten figs are the kingdom of Babylon. And of course, rotten figs is considered to be evil. For this story, by the way, you can see my podcast on the prophecy of Jeremiah. In my podcast, I also explain that doesn't mean the bad figs are bad. What do you do with bad figs? What do you do if you're picking figs? My kids are out here, we're going to pick a lot of figs, and you pick a bag of bad figs. Well, if you have a fig orchard, you just leave the bad figs with their maggots in the fruit orchards. The maggots will turn into wasps. They will fly along, they will find another fig, they will pollinate that fig. Even rotten figs have a purpose. So the basket of rotten figs has a purpose. Even the kingdom of Babylon has a purpose. And that's what actually Jeremiah was telling people. That even the exile and the suffering caused by the kingdom of Babylon had a purpose to move on the course of Jewish history, to actually bring about the end of the corrupt line of the kingdom of David. It was becoming corrupt. And in fact, if you listen to my podcast, you'll understand that Jeremiah was actually fairly pro-Babylonian. But for us, it might also teach us a lesson. Some things in our life look terrible and rotten and full of maggots. And in fact, they're not full of maggots. They're good. It's all a matter of perspective. Another fig-related story says in the book of Micah that every man shall sit under his vine and sit under his fig tree from Dan unto Beersheba, and they shall live in peace. Why is the symbol, the fig tree and the vine, a symbol of peace? Well, firstly, vines and fig trees are brilliant for producing shade. We have a vine here with people weaved around structures to make a nice covering, which actually was the original sukkah, the original tabernacle. And that's important for us for the Feast of Tabernacles, as the Jews are supposed to sit under these kind of coverings. And secondly, the fig tree and the vine are both, as we said, contenders for the first fruit. So if the first sin came from the vine or the fig tree, then so will the cure come from the vine and the fig tree. And by the way, a little note on original sin. For many Jews, original sin is nothing to do with women, actually. It's to do with the fact that Adam blamed Eve, and the idea of vines and fig trees is where people gather together to make peace. Thank you very much for watching and joining me on this tour in Nachal Raphaim. You can hit like, hit share, hit subscribe, or you can also contribute to this YouTube channel by going to ko-fi.com/ScoutIsrael or patreon.com/ScoutIsrael. But if you can't do that, hit subscribe. Sharing is caring as well. Share this video and let me also monetize this channel. And also, please come to Israel. Please come and see the beautiful surroundings in places like this. Nachal Raphaim Park in the south of Jerusalem.